And then, I guess really, the last big experience of this kind took place that fall. It was out on Montauk on Long Island, and there were only about 9 of us involved, mostly men. And we borrowed Dick Avedon's property out at Montauk, and the country out there is like Heathcliff country. It's absolutely wild. What we wanted to do is we wanted to take All Souls Eve, Halloween, and use it as a point of departure for something. So each one of us prepared some sort of event for the others, somehow in the spirit of All Souls Eve. But the biggest event was 3 of the people kept disappearing in the middle of the night each night, and we knew they were preparing something big, but we didn't know what. And midnight on Halloween, under a dark moon above these cliffs, we were all told to gather at the topmost cliff and that we'd be taken somewhere, and we did. And we waited, and it was very, very cold. And then the 3 of them, Helen, Bill, and Fred, showed up wearing white, something they'd made out of sheets, a little spooky, not funny. And they took us into the basement of this house that had burned down on the property. And in this ruined basement, they had set up a table with benches they'd made. And on this table, they had laid out paper, pencils, wine, and glasses. And we were all asked to sit at the table and to make out our last will and testament, to think about and write down whatever our last words were to the world or to somebody we were very close to. And that's quite a task. We must have been there for about an hour and a half or so, maybe 2. And then one at a time, they would ask one of us to come with them, and I was one of the last. And they came for me, and they put me a blindfold on me, and they ran me through these fields, 2 people, and they'd found a kind of potting shed, a kind of shed on the grounds, a little tiny room that had once had tools in it. And they took me down the steps into this basement, and the room was just filled with harsh white light. Then they told me to get undressed and give them all my valuables. Then they put me on a table and they sponged me down. I just started flashing on death camps and secret police. I don't know what happened to the other people, but I just started to cry uncontrollably. Then they got me to my feet and they took photographs of me naked. And then naked, again blindfolded, I was run through these forests and we came to a kind of tent made of sheets with sheets on the ground. And there were all these naked bodies huddling together for warmth against the cold. Must have been left there for about an hour. And then again, one by one at a time, we were let out. The blindfold was put on, and I felt myself being lowered onto something like a stretcher. And the stretcher was carried a long way very slowly through these forests. And then I felt myself being lowered into the ground. They had, in fact, dug 6 graves 8 feet deep. And then I felt these pieces of wood being put on me. I cannot tell you, Wally, what I was going through. And then the stretcher was lowered into the grave, and then this wood was put on me, and then my valuables were put on me in my hands, and they'd taken, a kind of sheet or canvas, and they'd stretched it about this much above my head, and then they shoveled dirt into the grave, so that I really had the feeling of being buried alive. And after being in the grave for about half an hour, I didn't know how long I'd be in there. I was resurrected, lifted out of the grave, blindfold taken off, and run through these fields, and we came to a great circle of fire with music and hot wine, and everyone danced until dawn. And then, at dawn, to the best of our ability, we filled up the graves and went back to New York.